All right, looks like we're live. All right. So I want to say ETM Hotep and welcome everyone to our Divine Words Wednesdays, and you are hanging out with the Seshew Ma'ani mdw-ntr. And just want to say welcome. Tonight we're gonna have just a laid back open mic, and we want to test out a new feature that we're trying out, which is a call-in features where people who are watching live can call in and ask questions or participate in the conversation. As you know, Google Hangout limits the Hangout itself to 10 participants. This way, with a call-in number, we can have more people participating. All right, so it's something that we're going to try out, and as we expand, and people are interested in watching and watching live, then we'll be able to have everyone chime in if they so choose to. But before we get started, we always like to start off with the recitation of the offering formula, which is a Hotep Dinasu formula. All right. So this time I will recite it. But what you see on the screen, hopefully you all can see the screen. We just verify. Yes. All right. And by the way, if you're watching now, you can always set your viewing quality to 720 or 480 by pressing the cogwheel under the video on YouTube. All right, that way you can see the pictures and everything we share clearly. All right, so I'll read it. At the top of the picture, you see the Seshew mdw-ntr. Most people know that to be hieroglyphic, the hieroglyphic writing system. All right. In the middle is the transliteration, and this particular transliteration system is something we refer to it as the diacritic transliteration system, where you see these diacritic marks around different characters. There's another transliteration system that we use, which is called manual decodage. All right. And that's case sensitive, but that's not what you see on the screen. And then on the bottom part is the translation. So we begin by reciting. So I'll just recite and you can follow along. And I encourage you to actually practice and recite it for memory. Do this often enough so you can memorize it. All right. So the offering formula. Oh, and also the pronunciations that we use today are all just tentative pronunciations. These are conventional. All right. They're not meant to be taken as historically accurate. All right. In case you all don't know, in Seshew mdw-ntr, the writing system, there's no documentation of vowels. So the vowels that we arbitrarily put in are just for the purposes of pronouncing it so that we can discuss the language. All right. There's people that may feel otherwise and say that, how do we know how to pronounce the words? Well, the pronunciations are all tentative and conventional. All right. But there is work being done, which is going to take some time, being done by African scholars who are using the scientific methods in comparative historical linguistics to recover and discover the historically accurate pronunciations of these words. All right, but that's going to be a pretty lengthy project, and it's being done by competent linguists. All right, African linguists. Okay, so with that being said, I'll recite the offering formula, and it goes: Hotep Dinasu, Wasir Neb Jedu, Netra A Neb Abju, Df Peret Cheru, Tihen Ket Ka Apet Seshmin Ket, Ket Nebet Neferet Wabet, Anket Netra Im, Inkani Imaku Aku Macheru. All right. And what that is saying is an offering the king gives Wasir or Osiris, Lord of Jedu, the great god, Lord of Abydos, so that he may give verbal offerings in beer, bread, ox, fowl, alabaster, and linen, everything good and pure on which a god lives, for the Ka of the revered ones, the ancestors, justified. All right. Now, usually when you want to recite this on your own, you can replace the word aku, which you see there with the cursor, with a loved one or someone that is a relative of yours that have passed, or someone that you revere, or an ancestor in general. All right. The word aku is pretty much a generic word for ancestors. All right. You can always replace that. So instead of inkani imaku aku, you would say inkani imaku and then the name and then makeru. Makeru literally means true of voice. But in this instance, it's translated as justified because most people are familiar with the judgment scene. And once your heart and your words are judged favorably, you're considered vindicated or triumphant or justified. That means you've been put through a trial and that you have come out of that trial in favor. All right, you have a favorable judgment. So makeru, true of voice. All right. So with that said, let me I can come off of that. All right. So and that kind of sets the tone. We always like to do that to set the tone. And before we move even forward, I would like to introduce myself, and everyone else on the panel can introduce themselves. And my name is Ujau Meneb Erimaat, and I'll be, running point for this evening. And so I'll just pass the mic. Okay, so we
Hotep Abek, Judy Maat, ETM Hotep, welcome in peace. Uja Sinet. Hope you enjoy the show. If you have any questions, something to discuss, you can call in.
Hotep, it's your brother Satep and Ra. Hope y'all enjoy the show tonight. Hope everybody got their book in hand. Go to the sign list when we go to the sign list. So hopefully y'all enjoy the show and the dialect tonight.
Hotep Abet Ren-E Emikeraku, and yeah, enjoy the show tonight, and it's nice to have you.
ECM Hotep, Randy Sean. Thank you for tuning in tonight. This will be a great discussion and topic today. So let's have some fun. Like I said, call us. If you have any questions, feel free to give us a call and join in on the discussion.
All right, Iker. Okay, so now, we've been saying call in, call in. So tonight, like I said, this is pretty much just an open mic. We want to test out the call-in feature. All right. So I've listed the number, but I'll do it again in the chat for those who are watching now. And as I said earlier, Google Hangout only allows 10 participants. So sometimes when we're having these discussions, there's people in the chat and there's questions, and we'll miss the questions because if we don't keep our eyes on the chat, we'll miss the questions. And I don't want to have people feel like they're being overlooked. So we're going to try this out tonight. And also, like I said, open mic. So we just bringing up any topic. Anybody on the panel bring up a topic. Anybody in the chat want to bring up a topic or call in, bring up a topic, ask questions, whatever the case is. All right. It's a stress-free Wednesday. Okay, so let me post this number again. And also, don't be shy to call in. It's not that type of thing. Just call in. We're all learning. We're all having fun. You know. So I'm posting the number and the pin. When you call in, you have to. It's going to ask you for a pin, and that's the pin. Okay. So if you're watching now and you're in the chat and you see it, call in, and we can test this out. Okay, but in the meantime, now, okay, let me switch back over. Okay, there is something that I do want. We could open up because we discussed the offering formula, and we always open up with the offering formula. I'm going to share my screen. Yeah. Okay, and that's that awkward silence that I don't like. All right, let me know when you all can see my screen.
Yeah, we see it.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So, all right. So yeah. So one more time again for those who are just chiming in, tuning in. First, welcome ETM Hotep, and tonight we're just having a laid back open mic. So feel free to chime in. Feel free to call in. We're trying out a new call-in number. I posted it in the chat, and I posted the number. When you call in, it's going to ask for a PIN number. So I posted both of those. And if you need me to post it again, just say so. All right. You should be able to scroll up and see it. All right. And don't be shy. Just call in, be part of the conversation. All right. So something that I wanted to bring up tonight is the actual formula that we recited, the Hotep Dinasu formula. Okay. Now this is a very, very popular formula. Okay. So I encourage people to read it, memorize it, and recite it. And we already discussed the pronunciations, how they're all tentative, but by reciting it, it'll help you to memorize it and to understand what the meanings are. Okay, so what I wanted to bring up though is what it actually is, what it's saying. We understand it to be of offering formula, and most people will refer to it as an offering formula, or they will refer to it by the opening phrase, Hotep Dinasu. All right. Now there's been a few questions in the past about the way this is written in the Seshew mdw-ntr or hieroglyphs, because here, can y'all see my cursor?
Two.
Okay. So here we have the sign or the glyphs for Nisut, which is king. Then we have Hotep, which is offering. And then we have D, shortened form of the word ready, which means to give. So here we have king. If we look at it in the strict order that the glyphs appear in, we have king, offering, give. And then we have the two signs that represent the name of Wosir or Osiris. So we have king, offering, give. So now a question in the past, someone asked a question based on honorific transposition. And what honorific transposition is when the words for king, the words for God, or the gods themselves are placed in front out of honor. So a good example would be the name of King Tut. A lot of people know King Tut as Tutankhamun. And if you actually look at his name, I don't have it to show at this minute, but if you look at his name inside of the Shinu, most people call the cartouche, you will see the name Amen written first, but no one says his name as Amun Tutankh. Everyone says Tutankhamun. So that's a classic example of where the deity's name will be transposed to the front. That's why we say honorific transposition. So it is being transposed to the front in honor. So it's Amun Tutankh when you read it literally the way it's written, but it's pronounced Tutankhamun because of the grammar. All right. And so with honorific transposition, it's also understood about the word for king, Nisut. And an example of that would be Hemet Nisut, which means royal wife, or some people may say queen. If you were to look at how it's spelled, this sedge plant that you see here would be first as well, but you don't pronounce it first. You don't say Nisut Hemet, you say Hemet Nisut. Or for the son of a king, aka a prince, it would be Sa Nisut, but you will see the word Nisu written first again. And same thing for princess or the daughter of a king will be Sat Nisut. But when you read it, the way the glyphs are appear, the word Nisut will come first. All right. So that's honorific transposition. So the question in the past about this formula is that if honorific transposition is being invoked here, then it would be Hotep Nesu D. But that was the question. Is it Hotep Nesu D? And that's a really good question. All right. And another question was that people are, a little familiar with verbal sentences in the language where the verbs come first. And if this is D, which is the verb to give, then why isn't this first? And if it's honorific transposition, why isn't this D right after the sedge plant, where to be Nesu D Hotep? Okay, so all of those are valid questions and things that we're going to address fully in upcoming lecture, because it's kind of an extensive topic, because you have to really discuss how the formula arises. And actually, this particular formula first appears in the 4th dynasty. All right, and there's a social change over from the 3rd dynasty into the 4th dynasty. So there's a lot of context that has to be understood to really get a good overview of the formula in full. So we want to reserve that for a future lecture. And also it's going to be explained in the upcoming grammar book that is being worked on. Hopefully we'd have that to be published by March. All right. But for now, I want to discuss who is actually giving the offering. Okay. So we have the word Hotep Dinasu. So we see this word D here, which means to give. And we see it here, gives. But then we have it again down here, give. And you see the word give in the translation down here. So who is giving? Because it says, most people translate this as an offering the king gives. So if the king is given the offering, then who is giving this when it says DF? F is a third person masculine pronoun. He gives. Okay, so he give. So who's the he? Is it the king? So for example, Hotep Dinasu Wasir. So Wasir or Osiris, or is it the king? Who is giving the offering? The king or Osiris? And I'm just going to open that question up to the panel or to anybody in the chat. To chime in and let's discuss that. So the question again, who is giving the offering? All right. And yeah, okay, Sean reposted the pin. So I'm opening it up to the floor. So anybody on the panel, you can chime on in.
Are you talking about the give on the second line or on the first line? The DF or Hotep D Nesu?
Well, the question is who give, because it says an offering that the king gives. So with that being said, it's assumed that the king gives the offering. So the question, okay, we have a caller that called in. Let me just 1 second. But like I said, we're testing this out. So first of all, Hotep, can you hear me?
Hotep, brother, with y'all? Yeah, I can hear you.
All right, excellent. Okay, so can somebody else on the panel inside the Hangout speak as well? And let me know, caller, if you can hear them as well.
You.
Hotep.
Peace.
Okay, so you can hear them as well?
Uh-huh.
Okay, all right, good. So all right. See, that was a quick test. So I appreciate you calling in and so it works. So yeah, just feel free to chime in. I mean, but you can introduce yourself and I guess chime in. I don't know if you had something to my question or you just wanted to bring up something or whatever the case is.
Yeah, I was just chiming in. I didn't want to pop in front of everybody. This is Jehudi Bakmaat, Hotel Hobbit.
Okay, Hotep.
And was just, I had an actual a comment on your question. I just wanted to get something cleared up in learning the language. And in terms of with the offering formula. So the Nasut, or the king, am I to understand that he is often referenced with the, I guess you would say, the deity of Wasir or Osiris? Is he kind of looked at with that kind of role, or is something that's not correct?
Okay, so if I understand what you're asking or saying, so you're asking, is the king basically playing the part of Osiris? Is that what you're saying?
Right. I know, like in the funerary scenes, if I'm saying it correctly,
Mm-hmm.
Ampu is seen, wearing the heart, and in the glyphs, it'll tell you what he's doing against the feather of Ma'at.
Right.
And it often in the glyphs you'll have what's being depicted in the picture. What is it? Is it called a vignette? Is that what you all?
The vignette, yeah.
Vignette, right,
mm-hmm.
right.
Okay,
and
so
I just noticed that it comes up a lot. Like I see the glyphs that spell out Wasir a lot.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? I just recognize that, and seeing the eye and seeing the throne. It's not necessarily every time you see that like that, but I noticed that I recognize when it spells out Wasir.
That's a good question.
Primitive, the seated king. So I was just kind of wondering, like, is that a question that can be open, or is there a specific answer to that question, being that there's a lot of scenes with Wasir depicted?
Okay. So Teb, you was gonna say something?
Yeah, I said that's a real good question. Because in the funerary text, you don't have to be a king to be known as Usir. Because if you go to the Papyrus of Ani, he's known as the Usir as well. But I see where your line of questioning is going, because I'm in that same line of thought, or at least I was when we saying Hotep D Nasu, like, who is the king? Who's giving the offering, the king or Usir? So if the king's dead, he is known as the Usir. You know what I'm saying? So that's why I was saying that it's Usir giving the offering, but it can't be. And we get into that.
All right.
Yeah, I just wanted to add something to that, and probably to the question that had been posed before. I think it's because what if the cases where it's not just Rusir? Sometimes we have Rusir and we have Npu, that is being given the offerings. That's the deities that are being given the offering. So that would probably kind of like give it some kind of clarity, or maybe answer the question. I don't know, but the question that was asked before about the who's giving on the DF Peret Heru, I would say that also looking at other offering formulas where we have not just Wasir, who's the king is given the offering to. We have, for example, Hotep Tunesu, Wasir, and then Impu. Then on the second line, it would not be DF, it will be D Sen, which is they. So then that would let me know that the DF is not the king or the Nesu, but it's the deity or the deities. In that respect.
Okay. See, that's excellent, Miket. That's Iker, because let me put it back on my screen just to show everyone. Look, my cursor. Okay, so hopefully you all can see my screen again and the cursor. So basically what she just explained is the formula opens up with Hotep D Nasu, and this is often translated as an offering that the king gives. And grammatically, I know that we're going to be starting a class with grammar once the book is done, like I said. So sometime in March, we'll probably start the classes in April. So around springtime, we want to kick everything off, where people will be able to learn about all these different things. But grammatically, this will be considered a relative clause. Okay, Hotep Dinasu, which this verb will be into relative form, that which he gives. So an offering which the king gives. And then people want to insert a to here, like the offering that the king gives to Osiris or Busir, who is Lord of Jeddu, which is the city of Busiris or Busiris, and then Netra, the great god, Lord of Abydos. So the impression that most people have is that the king is given an offering to this god Osiris. All right. And then down here it says DF, which means he gives. And then Peret Kheru, which is an invocation, or that the voice may emerge. Because Peret means to exit, or, to come forth. Kheru is the voice. So voice invocation of, and then the list of items. So you got bread, beer, etc., etc. So this DF, he, in this kind of formula, the way this one is, you would think that the king is doing this. But as Sonnet Emiket said, matter of fact, let me just show this next picture here. Let me see if I can make it a little bit bigger. Okay, probably go off the screen. Well, it's going to go off. Let me put it back. Hopefully you all can still see that. Okay, so this is an example of a stela of Pepi, who was a chief of potters, and this is limestone from the 18th century BC, which is approximately the 12th dynasty. All right, so this is the 12th dynasty artifact. And on here, you see it just as we saw in the previous slide right here, except in this case, it's facing to the right. So we will read from right to left on this instance, whereas on this one, we're going to read from left to right, just to let everyone know the difference. Okay, so on here, we have Hotep Dinasu. Now, what Emiket is referring to is that this line, hopefully you can see my cursor, this here is, instead of it saying DF, it says D-sin. D-sin. So the question is, why does it say D-sin? The word sin is a third person plural pronoun for they or them. So it is they give. So now we know that it can't be the king, even though this still says Hotep Dinasu, an offering the king gives. So the king can't turn into a they give. So who is the they here? So let's find out. So here we have the name Wasir. As you said, you see the throne in the eye a lot of times. And then epithet. So he's Kemety Amentiu, Netra Neb Abju. So this is what this one's saying. Hotep Dinasu, Wasir Kemety Amentiu, Netra Neb Abju. Now we have another person, another deity. And here we have Wep Wawet. Okay, and it's Neb Jesser, which is the Lord of the Holy Place or the Holy Land, which is a title for the necropolis, the cemetery. So we have Wep Wawet here. So we have Osiris and we have Wep Wawet, which is a canine deity that people get confused with Enpu sometimes. All right, and sometimes you will see Enpu here. But in this case, you have Osiris and Wep Wawet. So they become the them. They give. That's why it's D-sin. If Wep Wawet wasn't here, it would be DF, as you see in this formula. DF. So that's an excellent explanation, and that's what Sonnet Emiket was just referring to. So that answers my question. I put the question out there because people are not, a lot of people may not even know the differences in the formulas, because the formula has a basic structure, but it's slight variations to it. There's always the formula itself, the opening formula. Then there's the agent, who is going to participate make this event take place. Then you have the list of items, and then you have the beneficiary, the person who is benefiting from this entire offering. So those are the four main components. And the agent can be agents. So we have Wasir as an agent and Wepwawet as an agent. So it is those two that give. So that they may give Peret Keru Ti Hinket, Ka Aped, Minket, and so on and so forth. And this one has Senetra, which is incense, and some fine oils and everything. Then it has everything good and pure, etc. for the Ka of, and then we have the person's name, and we can see that for the actually it's Emir, so it has a title, and then this is his name, Pepe, right here. All right, so yeah, I mean that answers the question. So MK, you basically just went ahead and answered the question, but I brought that up just to let people know and be aware of what's going on with the formula. So let's look at the second picture. The second picture is from the late period. Now, what's interesting about this is that after the Middle Kingdom, okay, the Middle Kingdom, pretty much after the 13th dynasty, not third, I'm sorry. After the 13th dynasty, the formula, the way it's written, you see how it's written here? We have the sedge plant, and then we have the hotep in the middle of the D. So we have on the end, the sedge plant. On this end, we have the D, which is a conical loaf. And in between, we have hotep. Now, after the 13th dynasty, it was written like this, with the sedge plant and then the D next to it, where the hotep is on the end, And this causes some confusion among, people, and even scholars are, there's a lot of talks about this among Egyptologists and scholars. All right. So this is the late period, just to show well after the 13th dynasty, where you will see it this way. Okay. So, I'm just showing this picture to show that there's a variation in the way that it's, that you see it, that you may see it. All right. So, yeah, I just wanted to bring that up to and bring that to everybody's attention. But I don't know, anybody on the panel have anything to comment about that?
Yeah, I just wanted to add on from recently. You can hear me?
Two, yes.
Okay. From reading the SARS book, Nasu Binti, I know that it says the king acts as a mediator to give. Can you go into that? How the king acts as a mediator for you to give an offering for whoever, I guess, is deceased.
Well, yeah. Well, okay. So like I said, I'll just go into it briefly, because really there's a lot of context with this formula. Like we kind of take it for granted because it's so prolific in the literature. Like this formula is everywhere, from the 4th dynasty all the way to the end of the end of Kemet. This formula is found everywhere. It's found in tombs. It's found in the tomb itself, on the tomb, in the burial chamber, on coffins, in the tomb, on false doors, et cetera, et cetera. So this formula is everywhere, and we kind of take it for granted. We just say Hotep Di Nasu, and then we know that's an offering formula, and that's it. But there's some context to it, and there's a reason why it's so prolific. So what you were bringing up is that the king is intermediary. Now, one way of looking at this is that when it says Hotep Di Nasu, now we would say literally an offering that the king gives, but the question is the king actually giving the offering, like literally, or like in an instance where we say Hemet Nesu? Now we could say that the wife of a king, or we could just say royal wife, or some people may say queen. So if we say Hotep Di Nasu, could it be possible that we say a royal offering given? a royal offering given, because that kind of takes it off of the king actually being the person that is giving it. Also, you could look at it like the actual object that this formula is written on. So for example, this particular stela, the actual stela itself being a gift, because the word D means to give, but it's also the object that is given, a gift. And it also means to allow something to take place, to allow something to happen. Okay, so this actual object could very well be the gift of the king, so that the nature, because see what happens, this is what I mean by context, because in the temples, the various different necharu, more specifically, most likely it would be Wasir, Enpu, Wapwawet, and the others, but those are the prominent ones that are within these formulas. They would receive offerings from the priesthoods and things like that. So what they are allowing when it says DF or DSIN, that they may give or that he may give, we can also say that they may allow, or that he may allow an invocation offering of, and then a list of items. So it's basically allowing this deceased person to partake in their offerings, what is being offered to them as deities. You see, so, and like I said, it's the context that we would need. And in fact, so because when it starts in the fourth, around in the fourth dynasty, there was a changeover, a slight social changeover, where people were, in order for them to be effective in the afterlife, there was a perpetual offering that was needed. Whereas prior to that, it was all about what took place in the past. So there was a gradual social change during that time, early in Kemet's history. So what it comes out to be is that this offering is pretty much a wish that the king may satisfy the different deities by running the country in such a way as to ensure that the offering tables are continually supplied. And by those offering tables being continually supplied, it is wished that the gods who normally would receive those offerings may grant the deceased a share of the food that they would receive on behalf of the king. So all within this formula, you have basically trickle down economics, where the king is the intermediary, as you said, Judy, for the people. But it's a wish that the king may rule the country in such a way that the offering tables are always filled. So it's a two-way street. It's a burden on the king, and then the king rewards. It's a wish to allow the deceased to be rewarded or to benefit from this what do you call it? I guess when the king does good, when the king fulfills part of the duty to ensure that the kingdom or the civilization and everything is prosperous. That includes the food supply, the flooding of the Nile, everything. All right, so you have a case of trickle down economics. You have a perpetual provisions in the afterlife, so that people can be effective, which ties into the word ak, to be effective, and an effective one. Aku, we say ancestors, but it also means to be an effective one in the afterlife, to ensure that they have to receive provisions. That's why it says inkani, which is for the ka of the worthy one. Imaku, they say venerated. It also means he who is worthy. So it's for the spirit, or for the ka of this particular worthy person to be effective and true, who is true of voice. Okay, so
Hotep family, this is Brother Antoine Germain. I did have a quick question related to the Hotep eating soup.
Yeah, you're coming in a little bit broken though.
All right, testing, testing. Can you hear me? Still broken.
Yeah, I can hear you. Yeah, as far as volume, you're pretty loud, but you're just broken up. I don't know. Probably have to go out and come right back in.
Okay.
See if that clears it up. But did that make sense though? Because I don't want to. That's what I'm saying. Because we're gonna put together a lecture.
Yeah, that was nice. That was not because the way you said it, like it can be also a royal offering. That makes sense as well. So yeah, I can see where that can apply.
All right. Yeah, because like I said, it deserves its own presentation on it and whatnot. But I don't want to shortchange it and confuse anybody. So that's what I'm saying. Hopefully it makes sense about that.
Hotep, can you hear me now?
Yeah, that's much better.
Sorry about that. But yeah, you said you might have to do a whole presentation, so my question might be more related to that. But one thing I kind of gathered was when we were doing our Divine Words Wednesday and we do these Hotep Dina suits and we look at these different artifacts, we're actually saying the people's name. And so we're kind of giving them honor and we're venerating them in that essence. But as you said, it was a trickle down effect economically. On the flip side, we see where there may be an individual who will say, I'm going to give you this this offering because I hope that this is done. But if this is not done for me, then I might not come back and give you a additional offering.
Say that again though.
Where an individual may say, I'm giving you this offering, but with the hopes that something occurs. But if this something does not occur, then I won't speak your name again, or I won't bring you another offering. To where it's reciprocated, like you said, it's a trickle down effect going up positively. I'm going to give this with the hopes that it trickles up to the deity or what have you. But on the flip side of that will be the opposite of it. Is okay, I'm going to stop giving you this because you didn't do this for me.
Okay, so that's what you're saying. So you asking, or you
I'm saying I'm asking in the sense that I think we came across that before.
Well, I know that there are formulas that are referred to as call to the living, where people who would participate in the I guess what you call it, pilgrimage, because remember, Abydos was such a sacred place that people perform pilgrimage there for different festivals, and people who wanted to have their offering formulas placed in temples or placed in the temple complex in Abydos, so that the people who are still alive on earth can recite them, and so there was a call to the living in that regards. So it was like, for example, I don't have one on the screen to share, but I'll just read one. This is an example of one. I'll just read the translation. It says, "O you, the living who are on earth, who will pass by this tomb, going to the north or to the south, namely any scribe, any lector priest, any priest of this temple." And it goes on to say, "Here is the good name that you will mention in the temple of Wasir or Osiris." And then it gives the name, a person named Didi or Didu. So there were, invocations or texts that were written on these particular stela that also appeal to the living, so that these people's names can be recited and lived on. So I don't know if that's what you're referring to. And also there were also curses done as well, in a like manner. That's maybe, what you're referring to, and that will go into the effect of, if anybody messes with my tomb and disturbs it or vandalize my tomb, then, I'm going to haunt you, basically. And, I guess that kind of get into Hollywood with the Curse of the Mummy and all of that stuff. That was actually in text. Maybe we'll pull up some actual primary sources to show that, and we can go over that also next time. Not prepared to do it tonight, don't have any quick, fast, and handy, but they do exist. Yep. So hopefully that's clear. And just for another example, in the same text, like just so that people will know that this is something that was to be recited. In this example, we have Jed 10 or Jed Chin, which means may you say. We know the verb Jed, which means to say. Jed Chin, which means may you say, and you being second person plural. So it's like you all, may you all say this. And then it goes on to say, may you say 1,000 loaves of bread and pots of beer, pieces of beef, which is oxen, poultry, aped, which is, we would say chicken today, for the blessed or the worthy, and then the name of the person, then makeru. So these are things that were actually said and recited. And even today, the closest thing that we do today is when people go to the grave sites of their loved ones and they sit there and, you know, some people pray out loud, some people pray to themselves, some people bring gifts, some people bring flowers, and some people bring food, flowers, you know, different things to grave sites, you know, so that's still practiced today. And a tombstone, you know, the tombstones, a lot of the older tombstones are pretty much in the shape of a rounded stela, as you see on the screen here. This right here. I know, you know, me being from the DC area, they have a cemetery, you know, the military cemetery, Arlington Cemetery, and other cemeteries. When you drive past, you'll just see a whole row. You'll see rows and rows and rows of these tombstones that look like this, but they're just white, and they're just rows and rows. And if you're driving fast enough, it'll create an illusion because they're all in a straight line, in rows and rows and rows. But they all look like this. So anyway, that's just one topic I wanted to bring up. But like I said, you know, testing out the call in, and it's pretty much open mic. So I'm going to stop sharing this particular screen. And, you know, if anybody else has a topic, or again, if you want to call in, don't be shy. We're not going to bite. I know brother son Sean has posted the number. Feel free to call in. We want to hear your voice. Introduce yourself. You know, nothing to be afraid of.
Let me ask a question that I think is on a lot of people's minds. What do they do with all the fried chicken and the steaks and stuff, and all the food that's in the temple? What happens with that?
You know what? A lot people do wonder about that, and some people debate about that. But they ate it. It was eaten. And, you know, it was like, you know,
Right?
Huh?
The Netters did. The guy Netters did, because this is something I always get. That's
Oh no, the statues don't eat. Like, you know, the the ancient, you know, and that's funny though, because people actually ask that, you know, people actually think that. But it's a good question. But people, you know, well, the way I've asked in the past a few times is, you know, is that the start of kind of like the superstitious part of the religion in Egypt or whatever? Did people actually think that the gods ate the food? Or even today, because you have a lot of African traditions practiced in America, you know, United States, like especially the Ifa tradition of the Yoruba, and you know, that's heavily laid with sacrifice. You know, there's a lot of sacrifices going on in that tradition, and people will make a sacrifice, offer food and things like that to the various different orisha. And even within the different iles of that tradition, some people will offer the food first to the orisha and then eat it, and some people won't.
Can I add something?
It would just go bad.
Can I add something real quick? You can kind of clear it up if I chop it up. I guess kind of the way it was explained to me, like when the food comes out and it's still hot and you can see the steam coming from it.
Mm-hmm.
That's when it's made the offering. And as it cools down, once it cools down, you can eat it. But while it's still hot, that smoke or whatever that's leaving the food, that symbolizes you giving that to the deity or what have you. That's how it was explained to me.
Okay, well, hey, that sounds good. You know, that sound well. You know, because we have to remember that, you know, our lineages, our history, our ancestors and stuff, they were experts at figurative expressions. You know, because we're coming out of a purely oral societies, oral communities where there was no writing at first. So there was technology that was devised in order to transmit data. And so there was a lot of, we don't call it technology today, but figurative expression is a form of technology, like metaphors. We use metaphors all the time today, but that's the actual technology, especially when you didn't have writing. You had to depend on metaphors. You had to depend on myth. You had to depend on analogies and symbolisms, symbols and things, you know, to contain a lot of information. Whereas today we don't have to rely on it because we have writing, and we could be literal, or we don't have to be literal. You know, there's different degrees of how something could be, you know, expressed in writing today. So you know, the word for incense in the language, senecher, it has the word necher in there, and it has the s on the front. There's a lot of play with that. Necher meaning divine, necher meaning that which is lofty, the essence of something. It deals with distance, something being high, something being, you know, above and stuff. So signature meaning, you know, the smoke from something that's scented, it goes up. Smoke goes up. We learned that in elementary school. You know, stop, drop, and roll. You know, when you smell smoke or whatever, get on the floor and crawl because smoke rises and all of that stuff. So the idea of something rising and everything like that um, ties in with a standard. We see the so-called standard. People call it. Some people think it's an axe. Some people say it's a flag. Whatever the case is, it's something that is up high. Because even the other glyph that's used for necher is a bird, a falcon on the standard. But regardless, it's up high on the standard. Even from the Namir's palette, you see the standards being held up real high by the people walking, and at the top of the standard, you have these different symbols. So I'm saying, you know, the idea of the food coming out and the steam and the smoke coming from the food, and things like that, because, you know, back then it was no microwaves and no ovens per se, like us, where we have oven fans where the smoke goes out of your house through the chimney, or I mean, the exhaust fans and things like that. So when you cook barbecue off on flames or whatever the case is, it was a lot of smoke involved. You know, so all these things are at play. But one thing we know is that the stone statue, did not eat the food. You know what I mean? We have to say that. We have to say that. We have to say that. The stone statues do not eat food. Stone, you know, let's make that clear. I don't care how much food you put around a stone statue. If the food is gone, you best believe somebody was hiding and came and got it while you weren't looking. I guarantee you, if you sit there and you stare at the food the entire time and watch it rot, no, you know, the statues.
You sure the mummies didn't come alive?
Right, that's what I'm saying. So we have to be clear on that. You know.
And they'll say the priesthood will take the food at the end of the night or what have you.
Yeah. Okay. Now let's talk about that for a second, because you have spinoffs in initiation ceremonies with different various groups, right? We have college fraternities, college for sororities, where people will be initiated into these different organizations. You have Freemasonry, and so on and so forth. And anybody that participated in these kinds of events know that offerings are given. People who are initiates, the neophytes that are coming into whatever organization, they bring an offering. They bring food. They bring, you know, whatever, some kind of offering, and it ends up being a feast. And guess who eats it? The people that are performing the ritual on these people. You know, they actually eat. Now to the initiates, they may not see the 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 officers eat. And you know, we're not superstitious today to believe that okay, the food is going to be eaten, you know, by some invisible entity. So you can pretty much say, okay, somebody ate it. But you know, if they were superstitious, they'd be like, well, wait a minute, we brought offerings and now it's gone. You know, but they end up eating it. So the priests that are doing the initiations in these Masonic organizations and things like that, they eat the food, which is not too far fetched from in ancient times.
Better not show it without no food.
Right. Without an offering.
Mm.
You can't show up without an offering.
The thing is, the initiate might not know it's an offering at that time.
Exactly. It's part of the learning process. You're right. They'll know if they come empty-handed though. So but yeah, you know, so it's not far-fetched. You know, a lot of people, you know, want to hate on these different fraternities, you know, because of these college fraternities like Alpha, or AKA, and Alpha Psi Phi and Omega, the Omega dog, I mean not Omega, Q dogs, and everybody, people hate on it because they use Greek. They say Greek letter fraternities, Greek fraternities, and things like that because of the Greek letters or whatever. So they want to hate on it, but nobody, you know, the hate is just an excuse not to really look into it, not really study it, or find out what it's really about, you know, the essence of what these things are about. Same thing with Freemasonry. People blame it on the Illuminati. Okay, you're part of a Masonic organization, you want to take over the world, you're in bed with the Rothschilds and all this and that. They don't want to really study it. They don't understand that Freemasonry is at the core of Freemasonry. Of course, they have some innovations, you know, and variations, right? But the principles and the core of Freemasonry is very, very African. And there's books. I mean, there's people who try to, you know, point these out in different books. That people, you know, pick up a book and read about it. You'll see that different principles come out of African traditions. You know, so.
You know, I guess what kind of gets me, or kind of what kind of confuses me is when we understand that it came out of Africa and they stole it, or you know, we gave it to them or what have you. And within, if someone experiences or goes through a situation related to a process of Freemasonry or what have you, then if that person is unaware, it's up to us to, you know, make them aware that that came out of the African tradition. But in the same sense, we can't say that they took something that was ours. If it's yours at first, then how can someone else, you know, still somebody, it's like somebody stole your birthright or somebody stole something from you. Christopher Columbus discovered America, same kind of theory. If it's already there and it's yours, then how can somebody else take it, or how do you let them take it over?
Yeah, that's a good point. And to add to that, what shows kind of this inconsistent logic with that, which is why I say it's an excuse that appeals to laziness. People don't want to really study it. But like, for example, look at yoga. A lot of people will know that yoga is an East Indian or Southern Asian practice, you know, Kama Sutra, yoga, Tantra, all of that stuff, you know, comes out of the India area. But they will say, you know, they will tie it into Kemetic yoga. And doing so, they will say that, hey, you know, India stole it, or not stole it. Some people say stole it, but they'll say, well, it originated in Egypt, you know, and it, you know, the knowledge went over to India. Therefore, by practicing Kemetic yoga, you're basically just practicing your own stuff. And, you know, we're just giving it back, and so on and so forth. Now that will be said, and that will kind of go off without any debate or contest. But then when you talk about Freemasonry or something like that, all of a sudden the logic breaks down. You know, you can't say the same about that. Like, hey, you know, the principles in these Masonic organizations, the hierarchy, the structure, and everything like that is really, you know, very, very African, you know, and stuff like that, all of a sudden it goes out the window. No, it's Illuminati, you know, no, that's white man and this and that, you know. So I see a breakdown in the logic with that. It's inconsistent. And really, it's just a matter of people just studying. We can't be scared of things. It's like people got this phobia that if a European touched it or if a European wrote it, then we got to run the other way. No, you know, it's the opposite. Like it's one thing to say that Europeans stole something or corrupted something. That's not enough anymore. See, that's 1980s, 1990s. You could get away with that. But now in 2017, you got to do better than that. Not only can we say that Europeans, if we're going to say they stole it or if they're going to say we corrupted it, you got to show it now. You got to show how it was corrupted. You got to answer the questions: who, what, where, when, why, and how now. You can't just say it. You know, that's not good enough anymore. And in order to answer those questions, you have to deal with it. You have to scrutinize it. You have to criticize it, which means you can't run from it. You got to run towards it and deal with it, like once and for all type of thing. And you know, so this is what Shekanta Diop and Dr. Theophilo Benga kicked off for us, you know, starting with the UNESCO conference. You know, Theophilo Benga being exercising, you know, multidisciplinary methods, you know, crossing different scientific fields. You know, that's the model we supposed to be following. You know, no longer can we just say, ah, man, they touched it, you know, so, or it comes from Europeans, or that's a European author, you know, don't deal with that or whatever. No. And this is by no means saying that Europeans are right or wrong. You won't know that. Like if somebody say European is wrong, I'm going to ask how. Show me. Same thing with an African scholar. If they say they're wrong or right, show me. You know, where is the backing? You know, everybody comes to a conclusion, but you got to show how you came to that conclusion. What was the evidence that was surveyed? Where's the data that was used for you to come to your conclusion? Like, for example, there's a calendar circulating around with the claim of being 9-day weeks, 36-day months, 10-month years. So the question is like, that's fine, beautiful, nice, great. But where's the evidence? Show me how that conclusion was arrived. And if you can't show me the evidence, then don't expect me to just take your word for it and believe it. Because the days of belief are over. That's 1980s, 90s, and all that stuff, you know. And so we have to deal with things that way. We have to have that kind of attitude. And as scholars and scholarship, we should welcome that kind of attitude. Like, I wouldn't want anybody just to believe me, because I don't want clones of me, of my mind. Like, okay, everything I say, you believe it. No. You know, I'm supposed to be able to show you. I'm not going to tell you what to think. We should all be taught how to think and how to discern fact from fiction. What's live from Memorex? What's fact? What's fiction? What is innovated? What has been created, made up for today's time versus what was done in ancient time? Like, I can't create something now and exercise my creative license and do my thing, but then tell you that this is how the ancient Egyptians did it, if I can't show you that that's what they did. Now, all I can tell you is that, hey, I was inspired by the ancient Egyptians to create this, but this, what I created, is new. This is something that I, you know, embellished. But I can't say that that's how the ancient Egyptians did it unless I can show you. And to me, that's fair all across the board. And this is the attitude that we all need to have. You know what I'm saying? This goes for everything.
It kind of reminds me of church a little bit. Such and such said this, so we're gonna take it for what he said, and we're gonna run with it. And then we start, you know, spreading the gospel. We haven't checked it out, can't verify it, but the preacher said it.
Right. And that's what a lot of people in the so-called conscious community claim to leave. You know, they want to leave that kind of mentality, but really, are they leaving? Are the bulk of people in the conscious community did they really shake off that mentality? And by the looks of it, I would have to say no, because people are following what people are saying. And you know, it comes down to the lack of study and rigor. And the reason for that mostly is because of time. You know, a lot of people don't have the time to sit down and read a bunch of books. Because you think about it, the average person works 9 to 5 or 8 hours, you know, whether it's first shift, second shift, or third shift. But most people are working 8 hours somewhere else, right? Then when they get home, they don't want to, you know, they want to eat, they want to relax. If you got a family, you want to spend family time. And if you know, if you don't have a support system, you gotta, you know, fix your own food. You gotta do this. You gotta do house things. Make sure your house is in order. So by the time you finish a work week, you want to just relax. Summertime, you got to do yard work if you got a yard. If you don't live in an apartment, you live in a house, you got to do yard work, maintain your car, maintain your transportation, all of that stuff. But then you want to do something fun. So nobody really wants to have the time to actually apply the kind of rigor that it would take to study this kind of stuff. So what's left? You just go with somebody that sounds good, got good charisma, you know, funny, and then you just believe whatever they say, you know, and that's it. Like, for example,
or they might say they was inspired by the spirits.
Yeah, whatever. You know, to me, it appeals to that. It appeals to our social behavior now, and to laziness. Part of it's lazy, and part of it's just the status quo of life today. You know, the hours dedicated out of 24-hour period of time, 8 is dedicated to working, 8 is dedicated to sleeping. So you're left with, that's 16 done. You only got 8 left, you know, out the day. And then most of the time, a lot of us procrastinate, slow at doing this and that. So anyway, you know, so we got to get better at it. We got to get more effective and more efficient at it. So even as teachers, we have to be better. We have to get better at teaching, be more effective, time effective with teaching. And then anybody who's learning, students, we have to learn effectively, you know how to, you know, put some time into learning, and the best way to go about doing it. You know, it's a two-way street. So can't have everybody out here just believe in anything just because it sounds good. You know, like our ancestors worshiped the Ankh in outer space for 5 million years. Stuff like that.
Yeah, I agree. Jeanette, were you about to say something? You can go ahead.
No. I was just agreeing with what I was talking about. You know,
Yeah.
about beliefs and all that, and they, it's good. Those things have places for them, but like we discussed, I think, I don't know, 2 weeks ago, you know, is that it has to be clear cut. Labeling is important. You can't you can deal with that and want to be in scholarship where evidences are needed. So there's a place and there's a time and place for everything. So that works beautifully in other places where people need that, in churches and all those kind of places. But it won't work where people need evidences and clear understanding of how things work, pretty much. And that's the problem.
And you know what? That's a good point. But you and you know what people try to do to even short circuit what we're talking about. Because this kind of conversation and talking about this is a threat to the laziness and to the kind of lifestyles that we live today. And so what they try to do is beat the curve by saying that the scholarly method, the academic method, or the scientific method is what? It is the white man's method. You know, that's the white man's way of doing things, or that's the European way of doing things. You know, so they would kind of tag it as that to have an additional excuse not to even apply rigor.
The new thing is the Rockefellers information.
Yeah.
Right, yeah. But I got a question. When they say it's the white man's science or it's the white man's method, can have anyone ever demonstrated an African way or an African method to this point, to this day?
Tepesi. Tepesi.
Yeah, we
Uh,
actually have a show in the archives where we show the scientific method in Kemet. Matter of fact, Dr. Theophilo Benga in his book, African Philosophy, the Pharaonic Period from 2780 to 330 BC, he does an excellent treatment on the scientific method. And we did a show in our archives about the scientific method that everybody's familiar with today, how it was practiced and perfected in Kemet. It's called Tep Hesed, and then it has different steps: formulating hypothesis, asking a question, having observations, testing your hypothesis, and coming to a conclusion. The whole thing is there. So anybody running that, that's the white man's science, that's really thrown out the door. You know.
Yeah, I just wanted to add that with what Sean was asking about, have they demonstrated any African method? And I would like to say that for those people claiming that they don't even know what an African method is, and in their mind, an African method is just a lazy way of doing things and just calling on spirits, and that's it. And you can tell that these people are not studied in anything Africa. You cannot go to Africa with that kind of mess, I would say, because I mean, Africa and spirituality is more than that, and Africa has bad science, and we understand that clearly. So when these people say that, it actually just goes to prove that they're actually stuck in what they're trying to avoid, and they're not even African centered at all, because that is not African. Africa involves with sciences and all of that stuff. So I just wanted to add that in there, just to say that, yeah, they definitely don't understand anything African when they actually speak in that sense, and it's very disrespectful to an African mind.
Yeah. And see, we got to be careful with this is why I'm really hard on terminology and nomenclature, because in any scientific endeavor that we have today, all the scientific fields, if you notice, every scientific field has its set of vocabulary, its usage of words, vernacular or nomenclature. So just like law, an attorney, judges and prosecutors and all that, they have a way of using words that the regular layperson will use differently. And I always use the example of person. The average person would look at the word person and just think of it's talking about a human being. But in a courtroom, a person can be a non-sentient entity, such as a business. A business becomes an actual person. Just like we have social security numbers, a business has a EIN number, same number of numbers and all that stuff. We have a birth certificate. A business will have a articles of organization or articles of incorporation, whatever the case is, that will serve as its birth certificate or whatever. And it's actually treated like a person inside the courtroom. You can sue and all this and that. In all the different scientific fields, like for example, in science, the word theory has a different meaning than what a lot of people would use just in a normal conversation. In a normal conversation, if I say theory, we equate that as just some hunch, just some guess, or whatever the case is. But in science, a theory is not that. It is an explanation of a set of substantiated facts. So you have to have facts first, and then a theory comes after that. So a theory is just an explanation of those facts. But on a layman's level of normal conversation, nobody uses it that way. So likewise, when we're talking about Egypt, people want to like what you call demonize Egyptology, because it was started, to say, Egyptology started with Champollion and so on and so forth. But again, that's just a lazy way of just not wanting to deal with things. But in Egyptology, or in the study of anything, there's a certain set of definitions and specific terms that are used and defined a certain way. So I say that to say, it's like, even when we talk about religion and religious texts, when we say religious texts, we have to realize that what they're calling religious texts are really scientific journals. The only religious part about it that people are trying to imply is the fact that these texts are full of figurative expressions. And in order to know what the realities behind the figurative expressions, you have to be part and parcel of the culture, which is why initiatory houses and initiations were so important. So you could be taught the metaphor, the myth, and then the realities behind the metaphors and the myths and the symbols. And this is where people get confused with decipherment and trying to say that, okay, that, you know, Europeans have never pierced or cracked the esoteric meaning of things. See, this is where all that confusion comes into play. You know, so we have a lot of work to do, and people got to. Oh, you gonna say something?
Oh no, I didn't mean to break the bill. I just wanted to add to that. But go ahead.
No, go ahead. I was finished. But before you speak, because I know you don't want to call it in. Anybody in the chat, if you all want to call in, I know Brother Sean has posted the number in the pin. Now we know it works because we have Brother Jehuti Bak Ma'at on the line. So if you want to call in, just call in, but mute your YouTube so we won't have that echo. But yeah, you can call in. You could still see and talk and let your voice be heard. Introduce yourself, and you know, let it be a family affair. Just come on in. Anyway, but yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No problem. Was having a discussion about that at work the other day. I get a lot of people approaching me about the literature that I have on me. And I posted something on Facebook about, you know, me just getting my studies in, and I had a young brother approach me about, you know, how do I feel about religion and God and the whole nine, and he sees that every day I'm pretty much dealing with, you know, some type of African studies and African literature in particular, you know, the mdw-ntr, or is he, you know, he doesn't know that, he just sees Egypt and he sees hieroglyphs. And, you know, I'm just sitting in my corner chilling, minding my business, and he just comes up to me and he says, you know, well, he asked me flat out if I denied God. And, you know, I just told him, I said, well, you know, the concept for me, you know, I was raised Baptist Christian, and, you know, I broke away from that, kind of fell out with my mom over that, and we've recently mended our relationship, as many of us probably have, with our families who are super religious and super just belief binded, and we don't exercise the science behind the package of a doctrine versus just, oh, I'm just going to pour libation and the ancestors hear my call because I said Ogun or something. It doesn't work like that. You have to be initiated, and there's steps, and as you say, the Tep Hesed, the correct method when exercising any doctrine. Of course, we know when it comes to Christianity, you know, that's a conversation that can go on forever about how it's really not healthy for us. Mm-hmm. And because the essence of how they pushed that doctrine and what it did for us. And, you know, he doesn't even know the terms, like simple terms, like you mentioned, the word vernacular. And, you know, the average person just doesn't even know that word exists in the English language. And, you know, for someone to come and say, well, whatever language hasn't been deciphered, or, you know, do you believe in God? And you tell them no, and they say you're believing in the wrong thing. It's like, well, if you don't even know words within your own language, how can you tell me I'm believing in something and it's wrong? If you didn't even know it exists until you saw me, and then you don't even know words that I ask you, like vernacular, or if I mention the book of Enoch and who Melchizedek was in the Bible, and how Melchizedek is the equivalent of Jehudi, according to some scholars. You know, I haven't done much research on that, but that's what I hear from a lot of people. And you know, investigating these things, it's like, if you can't even begin to talk about it, then there's no reason why we should be bashing one another, saying you're wrong. Even coming from our side, don't just bash Christianity because you heard a lot of people say it's bad. Do the research behind what Christianity, what Islam, what the Abrahamic religions have done, and then do the research what our African ancestors have done for us and what they've left behind. And it just kills the argument. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So
No, those are all good points. Yeah, and I definitely share that same experience. Not as much now as I used to back in the day. Um, but you mentioned God. When people like the person that asked you the question, do you deny God and stuff? See, if I was to be asked that question now, um, I wouldn't even I couldn't entertain that question at all unless I would tell a person, look, unless you have about 2 hours to sit down and talk to me, then I'd rather not even begin to talk about that, because God is probably one of, you got the word God, the word spirit, soul, and possibly religion. Those are probably the four top words that are so ambiguous. you know it is so vague, and it can mean many things to many different people, that you have to, before you can even have a discussion, when those words come up, you have to synchronize your definition. So if I'm having a conversation with you and you bring up the word God, we first have to pump the brakes and stop, so we could synchronize what we're talking about, what we're identifying with that word first. And that in itself could take an hour-long conversation. you know so whenever I'm approached like that, I just make sure people know, like, look, okay, unless you rather sit down, if I have time, I'll say it. But if I don't, I say, look, I don't even have time. But if I have time, I say, look, make sure you have time. Give me an hour of your time. Let's talk about this God first. Let's synchronize these definitions of God. All right, hold up. I think that was a chime for another caller.
I want to say hotel to Brother Jehudi Bach.
Yeah, so hopefully, I
Hotep.
want to say ETM Hotep to whoever just called in.
Hotep. It's Brother Tony.
Oh yeah, Hotep.
Right?
All right, you can hear me. You can hear me fine.
Yeah, everything's perfect. I'm on my phone using it. Yeah, everything's good.
All right, okay. So yeah, feel free to chime in. Whenever you want. So
Yeah, all right.
what I was, yeah. So that's all I was saying. I was saying, so these terms have to be synced. And I know a lot of people don't want to use the word God, or they don't want to use the word spirit, or they'll say, I'm not religious. I'm spiritual, or whatnot, and everything. And it's really about semantics. It's the matching, the synchronization of semantics. Semantic meaning is a word that means meaning, what something means. And it's not so much the word and how it's defined. So, because there's a difference between definition and meaning, because a definition is basically the consensus of how these words are used as logged in dictionaries. But we all know that we could take a word out of a dictionary and then use it to mean something else in context. So I always say that meaning is born out of context. Context is the mother and father of meaning. And like I said, I could take a word like I always say, like the word hot. This is something we always hear. Something being hot. You look up the definition. Hot deals with temperature and related to fire and all that stuff. But we use it to say something looks good. Like hot equals good. In a lot of times that we say it, like, oh, those shoes are hot. Where you get those from? I'm gonna buy me a pair. So the context is dictating the meaning, even though it's defined differently. And also that's why you have dictionary entries where they have multiple meanings, meaning number one, meaning number two, and they're supposed to be in hierarchical order based on its most popular usage. So meaning number one would be the most prominent one, and meaning two, etc. So we have to understand that, and all these kinds of discussions, especially on these kind of discussions, whenever you get a discussion related to religion per se, got to take it slow. So yeah, so I'm looking at the comments. I see it. I'm just checking out the people.
Well, I'm gonna go ahead and roll out, family. Hotep for having me.
All right, Hotep, appreciate you chiming in and calling in. So that's good. So we're gonna so we know that this work. We're gonna keep using it. So brother Tony, you had any I know you said you didn't have any questions, but did you have any comments or anything?
Honestly, I don't have any questions. Comment I would share is I've been watching y'all tuning in like on Wednesdays and Fridays since I first started, I believe. And I want to say I appreciate the work y'all actually do. Y'all show from step one to step finish the whole process of deciphering it. You know what I'm saying? And y'all actually do it for free. As far as this part, not the classes, but you know, I appreciate it. I know other people do. I try to tell everybody I know who actually cares about African culture, you know what I'm saying, about y'all's channel and y'all's Facebook pages and stuff. So I just want to say I'm here to support, and I like what y'all doing.
All right, hey man, I'm pretty sure I speak for everybody else. I know we appreciate it, the support and the fact that you're getting something out of it, because that's what makes it worthwhile, you know, because the whole point is to learn, you know. We learn from each other. We want to pass on information to other people so they learn, and then, you know, it's a nice relationship we want to have with everybody. You know, we don't claim. Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I'm sorry about that, my bad.
No, I'm just saying we don't claim to know it all. You know, we just want to make our scholarly ancestors proud by implementing the steps and things that they put in place, and we want to build on it and expand it and even perfect it and tighten it down even more. So, you know, we emphasize method because it is by way of method. Even in ancient times, you know, like I said, we did a whole show on the scientific method in Kemet and how important it was, and it's what fuels math and science as the fields that we know of today. So we just utilize that, and as we march forward and learn and try to build a knowledge base that we can use as a resource to pull from to utilize different things for this day and time. So, because a lot of people ask, well, what is learning the mdw-ntr or the language useful for? Like, it doesn't put food on my table, it doesn't feed my babies, doesn't put money in my pocket and things like that. And anybody that wants to kind of make that comparison, they're in a wrong place doing that, you know, because it's not made for that. And I always throw back at them. I say, well, look, you're not going to go to Home Depot trying to buy, or you're not going to go to McDonald's trying to ask them to buy a Mercedes Benz. You know, you just don't do that. You go to McDonald's to eat. You go to a grocery store to eat, to buy food. You go to a car lot to buy a car. You know, so learning the mdw-ntr is a means to an end. You know, we want to say to let the ancestors speak. By us letting them speak, we got to be able to understand the language that they're speaking. And in this case, literally, it'll be the documentation. So we have to learn the language so that we can read the documents that's left behind, so that we could therefore see how they were able to come up with such geniusness as the classic civilization of Africa, just like the Greece and Rome is to Europeans, Kemet and what they call Nubia, but Kemet and Kush would be to Africa. You know, so we want to have a relationship with the ancestors by understanding what they left behind, and we could learn from it. Not that we could use everything, because we're in 2007. You know, we're not. And we don't live, you know, not everybody lives near a big river where we got to depend on a flooding of a river. And, you know, we don't live in where desert it surrounds us and stuff like that. So there's a lot of things, some things that we're not going to be able to apply, but there's a lot that we can, a lot of principles that we can. So this is something that we do and we encourage. So I'm just glad that you and everybody else who can learn and want to chime in and participate, you know, because we want people to chime in. Yeah.
Not to cut you, my bad. But yeah, like a thing that makes it like the best is that, like, a lot of people can say that, yeah, you can learn from people, or, you know, be humble and all this stuff, but y'all actually are. You know, I've asked Hush Your Mouth about books, or shun certain people about certain things, and y'all actually give, you know, your effort to actually teaching somebody what they're asking you, instead of just saying, well, point that out, but, you know, you get no more information off that. You don't really get an idea of what to look for. You can give a person the name of an author, but what book or what chapter in what book? You know what I'm saying? Like, it makes more sense to me as far as asking a specific question to get a specific answer instead of a beat around the bush answer.
Yeah.
And I think y'all are like head and shoulders above like most of the people in the community. Like I'm a Rock Squad, but definitely the Seshew crew. Like I really like what y'all do though.
All right. Well, hey man, I want to say, do I appreciate that? And I'm
No
sure,
problem, man.
I'm sure I'm speaking for the whole group on that one, because that's
Yeah,
what makes
Yeah,
it
do
worthwhile.
do
Definitely.
Yeah, we recognize you out there, Santoni.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's
So,
man.
you know, come on. We try, you know, we, like I said, we don't, and you know, we can make mistakes. And that's the thing, you know, we have a Facebook group so people could come in and say, hey, you know, on this show that y'all did on such and such date, timestamp such and such, you said this, or somebody said this, and I found something contrary to that. You know, we welcome stuff like that, because our object
Yeah.
is like chess. A lot of people who are familiar with playing chess, you're sometimes you play an opponent, and the object, you know, object is obvious to win. You want to beat the opponent. But really, if you really study chess, if you're a really good chess player and you study the actual game of chess, it's about the squares itself, and it's always about the best move, you know. And that's why some people are advised to play themselves, like play both sides, both colors yourself, and that way it eliminates the ego and eliminates the drive to beat someone, because you're not playing anybody. So now you look at it a little different, have a different perspective, where you're only going to move for the best moves on both sides, and then at the very end, the best moves in totality would win. So studying and this information is similar. So we're all in this together, and we want to move for the best moves, not to be right or not to win an argument. You know, that's not the goal. Like, I don't want to win an argument just for the sake of. I just want to be correct. I want to go towards accurate information. That's it. And that's the stance that we take. So if we make mistakes, then by all means correct it, because we, you know, that's what we want. We want correct information, regardless if it comes from me, anybody of the Seshew as a whole, or whoever. Even any color. You could be black, white, red, brown, yellow, purple, whatever. It doesn't matter. You could be all the colors of the rainbow. You know what I mean? It doesn't matter. Truth is truth. Facts are facts, and right is right. That's just it. So that's our stance.
Yeah, that's right, though.
But see, we have another.
You should go on a rant one day and claim to be the greatest scholar ever and all that. That might work more. Because humbleness works for me. You know, I grew up with my grandparents. You know, you learn certain things you don't learn by younger parents. So I appreciate other things that other people don't. But like y'all are very humble, and that's rare to see in the quote unquote conscious community today.
Well,
I mean, I've been here. I say this is a place probably about 4 or 5 years, but I didn't really start learning at a good speed until I seen an Unc video. And then I started finding out who the rest of the Rock Squad was.
okay.
Then it led me to finding out who the Seshew crew was. So, like, you know, I don't know. Some people are actually scholars and really show work. Then some people are, like we see, the internet people who are just on YouTube using those sources and doing things like that. So, you know, y'all are definitely on the other side of the wall. You know what I'm saying? Y'all separate. Anybody with a average mind can see that.
Well, hey, like I said, I'm gonna say do I again, you know. And that's what it's about, you know.
Yeah.
And you know, yeah, we don't do that. And that's another thing I want to say this too, that we don't, you know, we don't just jump on any little thing just because somebody said something, you know. Because you know, the conscious community, the so-called conscious community, is a culture of arguments and debating, you know. And I wouldn't even say debating proper. It's people think it's debating, but it's just a culture of fighting, you know, intellectual fighting or whatever the case is. And it's not even done properly, but that's what it is. And we recognize that. So, you know, we don't get caught up into that as a group, as a whole. Seshew, we don't get caught up into that. But any worthwhile topics that come up that pass our focus, such as Kemet, the languages and the culture like that, because that's what we focus on as a group, then yeah, we may choose a couple of things to deal with. Like, for example, the decipherment issue. That's a big issue. You know, it's a big issue to us, so much so that that's why we wrote the book, the rebuttal book to Walter Williams. And now what's popped up on the radar a bit is the Egyptian calendar system. You know, we weren't focused on that, but there's a lot of talks around that recently about the calendar system, whether there's 36 days in a month, whether there's 10 months in a year, and so on. So, you know, we may choose to chime in on that discussion, but you know, all this little kind of petty stuff and things that we've seen lately, we don't get involved with that, because we, you know, it's too much work to do. It's a lot that, you know, it's a lot that we don't know. So I mean, it's a whole lot that we don't know, a whole lot. I mean, about every 3 months there's new discoveries that's being reported in you know, different magazines, journals, and things coming out of Kemet, coming out of Africa, period, but in Kemet as well, you know. So we got to get busy. You know, it's a lot of books to read, a lot of books to understand, a lot of stuff. We don't want to be redundant. There's a lot of things that scholars have already touched on or in some form of fashion. And if we don't know, then we'll mess around and reinvent the wheel and kind of waste time, when we could just do literature review, read what scholars have already said about it, examine it, scrutinize it, discern fact from fiction with that, and then build on it, instead of starting totally from scratch. Sometimes we have to, though. Sometimes we have to start from scratch. But the only time you realize that is after you examine what's already out there, and you be like, oh man, that is just too messed up. If it's too messed up, scratch it and start from scratch. But the bottom line is that you got to analyze it. So, but I see we have another person on the call. So I don't know if you want to introduce yourself, and you had any questions or comments.
Hotep, it's Lisa. I just wanted to say hi.
Okay, Hotep. All right, good. So all right, it's working. So you can hear us good and everything.
Yes.
All right, excellent.
Yeah, it sounds perfect.
All right, so yeah, we're gonna keep this going. You know, this is little conference call. It allows us to expand the hangout, you know, from 10 people to 20 or more. You know, kind of got to get used to operating and stuff like that. So we'll keep it up. So far, so good. But like I said, this is kind of open mic. We just kind of chit chatting for this Wednesday. I did want to bring up the offering formula and pose that question that Sonet Emiket has answered very well, in terms of identifying the different gives, you know, Hotep D, and then you got you know, DF or D sin that comes after that. And it kind of gives a clue. It lets you know that it's the deities that are doing the second part, and that the first part is basically, you know, could be looked at a little different. So anyway, but we'll do a later fuller lecture or treatment on that, so we can give more context to it and everything. I think that would be good. But anybody else have anything else to bring up? Yes, no, maybe so.
I don't know. Do we have any questions on the chat?
No, we shouldn't, because they could call in, you know.
Right.
Yeah, this calling is actually very nice. You know, I think it's much better.
Yeah, because I
than
mean,
typing one.
sometimes the chat goes by so fast you miss it. I see we have Sister Ursula. I don't know if she's still there. Give a little roll call shout out. So we have Brother Aziz, Hotep, Ursula, Hotep. We have Christopher Withers, Hotep. I'm skipping. I know Tony, you're on. Lisa, you're on. And I thought I saw Monica earlier.
Yeah, I think she was there. Kevin was there.
Kevin, son Kevin's, son at Monica. All right. So Hotep. Khalik Allah, Hotep. I'm just scrolling up. Lil Real on the track. I know he's I don't know if I think he had an issue about getting into the hangout, but I know he's definitely right there. and 42 tribes, and Uncle Cromanti. All right, Hotep. That made the YP video. Jehuti. Oh, Skaven Zero. Hotep. And Charlie Brown. All right. Black History 365. Sarah Jehuti. Khalil Mixon. All right, man. All right. That's good. But remember, y'all could call in. And then, on our Freestyle Fridays, we'll do the same thing. Feel free to call in and we'll keep it going. But, I think we've been on for almost 2 hours. I guess we'll stop it at 2 hours. But, if anybody else has anything.
I got a question.
Okay, go for it.
All right. Well, it's probably on the minds of a bunch of people, but you may have touched on it a little bit, but how important is it for us to combat misinformation? How dangerous is misinformation to our knowing and understanding?
Well, it's very dangerous because misinformation is like termites in a house. Because if you ignore it too long, before you know it, your house will fall. Because misinformation, what it is it's like you miss the mark. And the closer to reality that a society operates and lives in, the better off and more prosperous that they are. So when you deal with misinformation, you're creating an illusionary existence. And then by you being, living an illusionary or delusioned life, and the whole society is living like that, then a couple of things can happen. You'll deteriorate in terms of prosperity and things like that, and you open yourself to be vulnerable to be manipulated. And this is why, one of the reasons, only one of the many reasons why we as a people find ourselves in the position that we're in, because we've allowed ourselves to succumb to the illusions. We lost the judgmental, the discerning faculties of us as a people that we once had. It's a lot of the reasons why we lost it and things. The slave Holocaust, stripping of your culture, because your culture provides your solutions. And because we don't have one and we're trying to find ourselves, we easily latch on to these other different ideas and ideologies that are not ours. The Abrahamic traditions, they're not ours. The way that they're practiced, the way that they've been formulated and what do you call it? What do you call it when you canonized and all these things that they're not ours. So we adopt all these other things. And if you look at around the world, other people don't have a problem with interfacing with other people and still keeping their own identities. Like, for example, the Chinese people have their own calendar. They have the Bazi astrology. They got feng shui. They have qigong. What else? Tai Chi. I mean, probably not. Somewhere in there, Tai Chi. They have all these different things, but yeah, they could still, like, if you talk to a Chinese person, they could say, hey, we're gonna have this meeting December 31st at 8 p.m. or whatever, and they'll be using the Gregorian calendar, saying January 25th or whatever, but yet they understand in their own culture they have their own calendar, their own modes of thinking, their own festivals, their own cyclic things that they do in their culture and stuff, and their own language and everything, and our own figurative expressions and all of that. But us, because we lost it, and we're so angry, at Europeans for, we blame, we put in the blame, and we acting on that blame, that we reject everything so much so that we reject it so hard that we accept it and love it, and it's crazy. So we just grab onto anything that sounds good, as long as it's not the European. Let me mix a little bit. Let me mix a teaspoon of crystals, half a cup of yoni eggs, a little sprinkle of Kama Sutra, and a little bit of this stardust and some colloidal gold and silver and some tarot cards and all that stuff. Let me just shake it up and voila, bam, package it up. You got a whole bunch of people doing that, you know. We got to get back to the scientific mind. So yeah, I mean, you know, I said a whole bunch of nothing really, but to answer your question,
that's what's happening.
Yeah, it deteriorates us as a people, and it's important. So it's important for us to address misinformation. We have to get back on track because it's about trajectory. You know, an analogy can be made if you have a laser, you have a laser beam, right, a laser light, and you were to put it inside of a vice grip where you don't have to hold it. You put it inside of a vice grip and you turn it on, and you have this target, and you point it to the target, and you put it on the bullseye. So if you push the target, let's say 10 yards away from the light, from the origin of the light, and it's still on the bullseye. If you push the target further back 25 yards, 50 yards, let's say 50 yards, it's still on the bullseye. You push it back 100 yards from the source, it's still on the bullseye. Now, if you bring the target back up to 10 yards away, and you take the light and you adjust it just a fraction, just 1 degree of an angle up, just 1 degree up, the light may still hit the bullseye because the target is still close. But now if you push it further back, now you say 50 yards, you'll see the light is getting a little bit off of that bullseye. And you push it 100 yards away, now the light is off the bullseye. You push it 200 yards away, the light is further off the bullseye, and so on and so forth. So what all that is saying is that in a straight line, because that's what truth is, ma'at and everything, it deals with something that is just, something that is true, something that is straight, you know, straight. Is a concept of straightness. And if you're slightly off from the origin point, then by the time you get further away, you're going to be way off, and you're operating outside the scope of the bullseye. And so what we have to do is go to the origin and adjust where it is so that we'll always be on the bullseye. That's the purpose of studying history, studying ancient and past events, so that we can make sure that we're on the right path. Like people talk about ma'at and talk about truth and stuff like that, but they don't understand that truth is not truth for the sake of truth. It's also the journey, and to make sure that journey is continually in a straight line, so that the point of origin and the point of the source and the target is lined up. And that's just an analogy to let you know that it is very important to deal with misinformation, because misinformation takes us off of the bullseye. And now that's where we're living at. And you got people in the world who operate on the bullseye. They therefore become superior, and they can manipulate you because you think you're on the bullseye and they really are. And then they can control what you got going on. And that's how, civilizations rise and they fall. You got this pendulum, rise and fall of civilizations. It's just like nature. Things get born, they grow, they mature, they decline, and they die. So eventually we have to come back into that. We have to give birth to ourselves again. So in the way we do that, we have to straighten this stuff out. So it's very important. We're not gonna get anywhere. And I guarantee you, just something real practical. Go to the store, buy something, and let that cashier give you the wrong change back. Like let's say you bought something that's $8 and all you have is a $50 bill. And the cashier assumed that you only gave him a $10 bill. So when they ring you up, they give you, based on thinking you gave him 10. I guarantee you're gonna make sure that's straight before you leave that counter. You're not gonna accept that if it's $8, you're not gonna accept that $2 back. You want $42 back. You better see, you better see 2 20s and $2 bills touching your hand instead of just $2 bills. So you're gonna straighten that out. So you can see just on a very minute, small, everyday, practical level that we want things to be accurate. Because it affects us. Because you're not gonna stand there and give $40 away. You know what I'm saying? So that's the attitude we got to have for all of this stuff. We got to make sure it's right and do our best. You know what I'm saying? So anyway, I know I went on a little rant, but anybody else have anything else?
No, that pretty much said it all, you know.
All right. Well, you know, I want to drag this out. So we've been on, and son Tony, I appreciate everything you were saying, and that's what makes it worthwhile. So we hope that other people share your same sentiments and everything like that. And you know, we're just gonna keep doing what we're doing. We love what we're doing. I love what I'm doing, and at the same time, you know, we don't want to be in a position of being poor righteous teachers either. So we are going to develop some things where people can benefit from, where it could be mutual benefit from both sides and things. So we're going to have some presentations. We're putting together some projects that we're going to publish together collectively. We had our first publication of the rebuttal book, but we're going to be doing some more in the future, and we may do something dealing with the ancient Remich or the ancient Egyptian calendar system, you know, because that seems to be this growing topic that comes up. We'll see. Because that's something that may be interesting enough to handle. All right, so we may do something like that. But yeah, so we have some projects. And then also, I want to say this too. I will be starting a beginners class again very soon, like really like yesterday, you know, ASAP. So anybody who's listening or who will watch the archive, email me, go to the website, mdw-ntr.com. That's mdw-ntr.com. Register for the class, register for the interactive class, because I'm going to start it as soon as I can synchronize everyone's free time, their availability, because I have enough people now. I just have to get people to agree on a consistent time of the week. The class is for 12 weeks. It's 2 hours a week. So we meet once a week for 2 hours, and it's for 12 weeks. All right. And it's a beginner's course. Even if you're familiar with the language already a little bit, if you want to have like a refresher, then that's fine. You know, the more the merrier. You can contact me on Facebook, contact any of the members of the Seshew, or go to the website yourself and find out more information and register. All right. So, and also we have books. Well, the textbook that goes with the class is the Beginner's Introduction to mdw-ntr. If you don't already have it, get it. You can actually learn on your own. It's preferred that you learn with a group because it just provides a better learning experience. But you can learn on your own. And we also have a book. Has the Egyptian hieroglyphic writing system been deciphered? A rebuttal to Walter Williams. And in that book, it's a good book because reading that book will probably motivate you to learn the language. Most likely it will, because it's information in there that's telling you how the hieroglyphs function, how they operate. And it's going to lead you into wanting to learn the language, because then you're going to realize, man, it's not as intimidating or hard as I think, you know. So keep all that in mind, and pass our videos around. You know, any of the videos. We have a huge archive now because I believe we started in April. We have Divine Words Wednesdays and Freestyle Fridays. So we've been going at it since pretty much April of last year. So we have quite a few videos in the archives. Feel free to share them. Feel free to comment on them. Feel free to, you know, scrutinize them, critique them, give us feedback. We want all of it. All right. So with that, that's, you know, that's my spiel. So anybody else?
I have one last question. It's a small joke question.
Oh, go ahead.
I was granted immortality, and I'm wondering, how do I get it? Will it be in pill form or holy water? How will I get immortality?
Well, you got some people who are here to give you immortality. You know, you gotta recite the magic word, and you gotta look for the Ankh in the sky and outer space in the center of the galaxy. And I don't know, you have to do some chanting and things like that. So yeah, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
as a matter of fact, I'm gonna tell you what, I'm gonna give you immortality right now. Matter of fact, if you could do this, put your left cheek against your phone that you're talking on, and then put your right hand in a bottle of water, you know, and repeat after me. Now let me stop because people because people go.
All right, one of those Christian preachers, touch the TV and close your eyes, pray with me. Right,
yeah. No, see, and that's the thing, you know, we want that quick fix, man. We want that quick fix. It's not about that. It's not about that. It's a journey. It's a journey, you know, it's a journey. Any most African traditions will tell you you're born to, you're born in this world to conduct business. And while conducting business that we call life, you're supposed to learn, gain, and you're supposed to share your talents that you are innate with, that you have this natal talent that you share with others, and it's a mutual thing with your fellow man. And it's a journey. It's you can't get this quick fix, and stuff like that. So it takes work, challenges, like lifting weights. You're never gonna tone up your muscle or get bulkier muscles if you don't have resistance. That's the whole concept of weightlifting. So likewise, your spiritual growth and everything is done through challenges. It's how you persevere through these challenges that allows you to grow. So life is a school in that sense. And you're going to receive challenges, and you're supposed to learn how to deal with them. That's how you grow. That's how you spiritually cultivate and expand. And that's what it's all about. So this quick fix stuff is not the way. It's not it. You don't take a pill and then all of a sudden have immortality and stuff like that. So people need to stop that.
Right. I think it's great that you mentioned about life being challenges, and people need to welcome challenges because it's the only way you grow. I mean, when you see it's not becoming to see somebody who's being questioned, feel like they're being challenged, and they drop how many years they've been doing something. I've been doing this for 30 years. I've been doing this for 50 years. So I'm above challenge, or I'm above mistakes, or anything like that. That when somebody gets to that level, then that's when you know that it's impossible to learn anything from them, or even for them they've just failed in this thing called life and the learning process that comes with it. So when you see that, it's very disheartening.
Yeah, it's a good point. And you might as well close us out, Sonnet Imiket. Do us all, bless us with your closing remarks.
All right. Okay. So yes, dua for tuning in, dua for calling in, and yes, Brother Tony, you have immortality now, and yeah, just take good care of it. Anyway, so thank you for for tuning in, and for participating with the questions in the chat and on the call, and hopefully we'll see you again on Friday on our Freestyle
Yeah,
Fridays.
most definitely. I have
Yes,
questions
and
next time.
yes, Dua. And if you haven't joined the group page, do that. That's Seshew mdw-ntr on Facebook, and check out the website www.mdw-ntr.com. We have a lot of resources there, so join in as a member. There's free membership, there's paid membership. Paid membership also, you get access to a whole lot more. So do that. If you haven't gotten the books, the beginner's book, get that. A beginner's introduction to Methodological, and then the book on decipherment, which is pretty good. It's not just on decipherment alone, but it covers a lot of things. Has the Egyptian hieroglyphic writing system been deciphered? A rebuttal to Walter Williams. Get that. And once again, thank you, Dua, for tuning in. And if you have any input, any corrections that you want to give us, do that. We welcome that without hesitation at all. We appreciate that, actually. So do that. And with that, I'd just like to say, get an affair or back an affair to others who are in the morning time, and Shema Motep.